history, language, culture, mentality. Experts, activists, and concerned citizens' opinions on what it means to be a Belarusian. Identity.
Welcome back. Arsienij Anderson is at the mic for you. Today we'll talk about the Belarusian language, its history, development, as well as bilingualism in Belarus and the status of Belarusian. Our guest is Professor, Doctor of Philology, Hanna Kulieš.
Identity.
Когда речь заходит о белорусском языкознании,
When it comes to Belarusian linguistics, many people think about the words taraškievica and trasianka. What are these, language variants or dialects?
Taraškievica. Гэта граматика.
In 1918, Belarusian Grammar for Schools was published, authored by Bronislav Taraškievič, a graduate of the Historical and Philological Department of St. Petersburg University. His grammar was highly appreciated because the author successfully combined the phonetic and morphological principles of spelling. Not only vowel spelling rules were defined, but also some consonants. For example, the transfer of assimilation softness. True, some rules were formulated in a difficult way, like the transmission of ya sounds. The rules formulated in this grammar were used before the 1933 reform. Taraškievica is the name of a literary norm formulated by Taraškievič in his Grammar for Schools. This is not a term, but an assessment. It is used to denote a norm alternative to the reform of 1933, according to which the morphological principle of writing, the urban one, brought the grammar closer to the standards of Russian. In the 1990s, there were some periodical editions on Taraškievica, and now some books are being issued. In 2002, the Bible, translated by Vasily Somoha, was published in Minsk. Some of the Belarusian-speaking internet users exercise Taraškievič grammar standards. As for trasianka, trasianka is not a dialect, and the word itself is a metaphor. There is a scientific point of view for this phenomenon. Foreign scientists began to study trasianka at the end of the 20th and the beginning of the 21st century. In Ukraine, there is a similar phenomenon called surzik. In particular, Slavists from the University of Altenburg in Germany invited some Belarusian colleagues for joint research. Scientists consider trasianka a mixed Belarusian-Russian speech, a hybrid form of language that creates various classifications based on the presence in the speech of Belarusian or Russian language features. The language situation in Belarus is also researched by Russian scientists. In 2002, Yuri Kurakov defended PhD thesis The Language Situation in Belarus and the Typology of Language Situations at the Lomonosov Moscow State University. There is no single view on the nature of trasianka among the researchers. Kuryakov formulates his understanding of this phenomenon in a short form of the final part of the dissertation as follows. Russian language, native to 1/3 of the population, is comprehensible to almost everyone. The proximity of Belarusian and Russian also contributes to this, which leads to the illusion of language mastery. However, the desire to speak it generates significant interference. This type of speech, when the speaker believes that he speaks Russian, but many features remain essentially Belarusian, was called trasianka. From the cited, it follows then that trasianka is a Belarusian variety of Russian. The author also speaks about the time of the origin of this phenomenon. The current situation began to take shape in the 19th century, after the territory of modern Belarus became part of Russia. I agree with this view on the essence of trasianka. This phenomenon should be evaluated bilaterally. In general, trasianka is a product of certain socio-historical conditions. In particular, this is a manifestation of insufficient humanitarian education, a low culture of speech.
на ваш взгляд, не мешает ли ситуация двуязычия в Беларуси развитию?
Does the bilinguistic situation in Belarus interfere with the development of the Belarusian language itself?
Вось подтверждением может быть згадання.
The bilinguistic situation itself cannot prevent it. The four official languages of the Belarusian Soviet Socialist Republic in the 1920s confirmed this. On the contrary, at that time Belarusian was developing very intensively, expanding in all areas, especially education. I will give some facts to confirm it. In the Belarusian State University at the Faculty of Law and Economics in the 1925 and 26, only 3 teachers knew Belarusian and taught 8 hours a week in Belarusian. Next year, 16 teachers spoke Belarusian and the number of Belarusian classes increased to 26 hours a week. Moreover, not only Belarusian natives but experts from abroad successfully mastered Belarusian and used it in their professional activities. For example, Gradinger, who before arriving in Minsk worked in Yaroslavl, Tartu, Riga, Simferopol and Crimean universities. Since 1926, he published his scientific papers mainly in Belarusian. Why is the situation with Belarusian so different nowadays? In Article 22 of the 1927 BSSR Constitution, it was written, "Due to the significant superiority of the Belarusian population in BSSR, Belarusian is chosen as the preferred language for communication between state, professional, and public institutions and organizations." What do we have now? According to the Law on Languages in the Republic of Belarus, as amended in 1998, Belarusian is no longer obligatory. Here, for example, is the wording of Article 8, Language of Office Work and Documentation. In the Republic of Belarus, the languages of office work and documentation, as well as the languages of relations between state bodies, local government and self-government, enterprises, institutions, organizations, and public associations, are Belarusian and/or Russian. That is what makes Belarusian optional in the Republic of Belarus. And such formulations on the use of languages are same in all other areas. By the way, it contradicts the Constitution of the Republic of Belarus, which directly states the statehood of both languages and does not give a choice. This means that this is not a matter of bilingualism, but relationship to Belarusian. This is no longer a preferential, but at least an equal position regarding another state language. Belarus has unbalanced bilingualism. According to 2009 statistics, Belarusians make up 83.7% of the total population, and the national language of the country's main population, according to the Law on Languages, is currently not equal with the other state language. This is what impedes the development of Belarusian.
А как вы думаете, с точки зрения, скажем, имиджа?
The absolute majority, at least if we take Minsk into account, speaks Russian as a native language, but understands and speaks Belarusian using Russian additions. Many government officials speak Russian, the first language of the websites of state institutions and even the largest news agencies like Belta and Tut.by is Russian. Is this situation necessary and possible to fix?
Безумовно так. Безумовно так. Це правда є.
I should disappoint Russian-speaking Belarusians. Their Russian is just the Belarusian version of Russian. This is not just my opinion. This definition is used in publications by scientists who study the linguistic situation in Belarus. For example, Professor Norman in his work Russian in Modern Belarus, Practice and Norms writes this. The Belarusian version of Russian is not limited to features in the field of nomination. There are also differences in phonetics. Word formation processes proceed here, one might say, somewhat inhibited, without the courage that is inherent in the Russian of the metropolis. It is necessary and possible to correct the situation. It is necessary to start with the fact that the combination of words Belarusian and/or Russian be removed from the Law on Languages. This will entail other changes. Lawyers and experts in the field of constitutional law have repeatedly declared this need.
Как вы считаете, важен ли белорусский язык?
Is Belarusian important for one to feel like a Belarusian?
Перший раз чую такое питання.
This is not the first time I've heard such a question. It is complex to find a meaningful answer to it. I collect and store the answers of representatives of different nationalities to a similar question. Here is one of them. A well-known Russian TV interviewer, Vladimir Posner, in an interview with Andrei Kuzmin from TAT Media Company, said the following. If we talk about which nation we belong to, then the main indicator of this is our language. The language reflects us. Russian reflects Russians, French the French, and of course the Tatar reflects the Tatars. Language reflects us. I cannot disagree with this. Reality is illustrated with language. Let's compare a small fragment from the linguistic picture of the world reflected by the means of two languages. The word brak in Russian means marriage, as in family union, and is formed from the word brать, to take, and reflects the supremacy of men in gender relations with its semantics. Ślub in Belarusian is consonant with the phrase to fall in love. It fixed the relationship of equality between a man and a woman. Proficiency in the national language is, after all, a manifestation of patriotism. Not knowing Belarusian, ignoring it, is unpatriotic.
Ну и последний вопрос, мы его всегда задаем в передаче «Идентичность».
What does it mean for you to be a Belarusian?
У мяне вельмі кароткі адказ на.
For me, it means to be a decent person. And in my opinion, the same answer should be to the questions, what does it mean to be a Russian, a Ukrainian, a Pole, a Czech, a German, etc.
Українцям, полякам, чехам, німцям і г.д.
Identity.
Unfortunately, the format and the saturation of this month with no less interesting topics related to certain dates and events allow us to give only a squeeze of an hour's conversation. You can find this and other programs at our YouTube channel, Cultural Panorama of Radio Belarus. Today we touched on the philological aspects of Belarusian with Professor Hanna Kulieš. In the next issue, we will talk about the sociological aspects of the language, its current state, dynamics, and statistics with the Doctor of Sociology, Deputy Director of the Institute of Sociology of the National Academy of Sciences of Belarus, Dmitry Benzyuk. Arsienij Anderson and Janina Vaitinkova were with you today. Same wave, same time, next week.
History, language, culture, mentality. Experts, activists, and concerned citizens' opinions on what it means to be a Belarusian. Identity.